Have you ever been in a room where everyone is talking, shouting, or trying to be the center of attention, but your eyes kept drifting to the one person who wasn't saying a word? Maybe that person is you. You sit there, calm and observant, while others perform their social noise. Society usually looks at the quietest person and assumes they are shy, awkward, or have nothing to contribute. But in the world of the explained self, we know that human behavior only makes sense when you understand the hidden mechanics behind it. The truth is, silence isn't empty, it's full of data. When someone stops talking, it's usually because they've already figured you out. They aren't missing the conversation, they are auditing it. While the world is busy performing, the quietest person is busy downloading. If you've ever felt like an observer looking in, or if people have told you that you're intimidating simply because you don't talk much, you aren't broken. You were likely operating on a higher frequency than 95% of the population. Today, we are hitting this topic fast to unmask why you should fear the quietest person in the room. We're going to explore the science of the unseen and break down the 5 rare traits that prove silence is actually a high-level social strategy and a biological marker of a rare mind. Welcome to MindVeilx, where we dive into the mechanics of the deep thinker. The first reason the quietest person is the most formidable is what we call the high bandwidth data filter. Most people use conversation to perform or seek validation. They talk to fill the silence because they are afraid of the thoughts that might surface if the room went quiet. But for a deep thinker, silence is the primary tool for data acquisition. When you are quiet, your brain isn't idle. It is utilizing intuitive pattern recognition to process 100% of the sensory data around you, while the talkers are only seeing about 50%. You aren't just listening to the words people say, you are picking up on micro expressions, the specific tonal shifts in their voice, and the hidden intentions behind their social mask. You are essentially performing a real-time vibe check on every individual in the room. This is the observer's burden. Because you see more than you should, you often find it difficult to engage in the shallow social noise that others find comforting. You realize that once you realize nobody cares, you win, and you no longer feel the need to perform for an audience that isn't really listening. You would rather be lonely but happy in your own internal world than participate in a low-resolution simulation of a conversation. Your silence isn't a lack of social skill. It's a sign of selective excellence. You refuse to waste your cognitive energy on data-poor interactions. The second trait that makes the quiet person dangerous to manipulators is simulation intelligence. Have you ever been called slow to respond or told that you think too much? In reality, you are performing a metacognitive audit of your own neural pathways before a single word leaves your mouth. While others speak impulsively to fill the air, a rare mind runs a social simulation. You analyze 3 or 4 different ways your sentence could be interpreted, how it might affect the power dynamic of the room, and whether it aligns with the absolute truth. This is the same mechanism that makes you reread your own sent messages or replay past conversations on loop. It's not overthinking, it's a high-level audit of social data. Because of this internal delay, when you do finally speak, your words have the weight of 1,000 shallow sentences. You don't guess, you calculate. This makes you impossible to manipulate because you've already simulated the manipulator's next 3 moves before they've finished their first sentence. You are the psychology of people who don't gossip because you realize that gossip is just low bandwidth noise that clutters your simulation. You value precision over speed, a trait common in those with an extremely high IQ. The third reason to fear the quiet person is their traumatic intelligence. Many quiet people didn't choose silence, they were forged in it. If you were someone who had to grow up too fast or was the black sheep of your family, you developed a rare radar for human intentions as a survival tool. When you were a child, you had to watch the adults in your life to see if it was safe to speak. You learned to read the room before you learned to read books. This has followed you into adulthood as a hyper-awareness of hidden dangers. You can spot 7 things only fake friends do from a mile away because you've seen the patterns before. This is why you might avoid crowds or prefer being alone. Your brain is so efficient at picking up red flags that being in a room full of fake social masks is physically and mentally exhausting. You feel secretly drained by guests because your radar is working overtime to protect you. You aren't antisocial. You are selectively autonomous. You only allow people into your circle who have passed a rigorous, silent data audit. For the quiet person, silence is the ultimate filter for authenticity. The fourth reason the quietest person is often the most powerful is the intimidation factor. Have you noticed that people act weird or nervous around you, even when you're being perfectly polite? This is because your ability to stay calm, maintain eye contact, and remain silent is a threat to their social performance. Most people rely on constant verbal feedback to feel safe. They need you to nod, laugh, and validate their social mask. When you stay silent and just watch, you are removing their safety net. You are forcing them to face their own insecurities. This is why you should fear the quietest person in the room. They are the only ones who aren't performing for your approval. Your silence acts as a psychological mirror. If someone is being toxic or manipulative, your lack of reaction, your gray rocking, or your ability to stay calm even in arguments forces their toxicity to reflect back onto them. You have mastered the psychology of people who endure life silently. You don't need to shout to win. Your presence alone is a statement of hyper-independent autonomy. You have realized that you don't need anyone's permission to exist, and that level of self-sufficiency is the greatest threat to a society built on external validation. The final reason to respect, and perhaps fear, the quietest person is their mastery of the silent exit. For a deep thinker, there comes a point where you realize that explaining yourself is a waste of your most valuable resource, your peace of mind. If you are a quiet person, you likely possess the psychology of people who cut everyone off. Once they realize the connection is no longer authentic, you don't need closure, you don't need a final talk, and you definitely don't need to win an argument. You simply stop reaching out. You walk away from people silently because you've already figured out that the social noise of that relationship is no longer worth the cognitive cost. This is the ultimate sign of selective excellence. You would rather have one or two real friends, or even no friends, than a stadium full of people who don't know the real you. You've mastered the psychology of people who choose to be alone, realizing that solitude is the only place where your brain finally feels safe to process the science of the unseen. Your silence is your final answer to a world that was committed to misunderstanding you. If you recognize yourself in these traits, I want you to stop feeling guilty for your silence. You aren't weird, and you definitely aren't broken. You are a deep thinker in a shallow world, and your ability to watch, listen, and simulate is your greatest strength. Your silence isn't a void, it is a high bandwidth signal that most people simply aren't tuned into. You are the quietest person who sees the most. You have realized that once you realize nobody cares, you win, and you have chosen to use your energy to build a life of autonomy and truth. Your silence is your shield, and your rare radar is your guide. But I have to ask, which part of this unmasking hit you the hardest? Is it the way people act weird around your calm, or the moment you realized you don't need to explain yourself anymore? Tell your story in the comments below. I read as many as I can because your experiences are what make MindVeilx a home for the rare minds. If this video made you feel a little less weird and a lot more understood, hit that like button and subscribe. Let's keep exploring the hidden mechanics of your mind together. Until next time, protect your peace